1946, there was a gentleman by the name of R.E. Barclay that decided he wanted to write a book about the Ocoee region, and specifically the Ducktown Copper Basin region. In his research of the time between 1830 to 1890, he came across a gentleman that was so extraordinary that he dedicated 2 chapters to this one gentleman. His name was Captain Julius E Raht. This gentleman, for a period of over 25 years, his life was, with its philosophy, determination, and success, reveals a swift moving panorama of personal achievements that should rank high in the annals of American biography. He mined the ores and sowed the copper. He owned a portion of the scaffolding that was used in mining the companies. He owned or controlled the teams that transported the copper to the railroad. He owned the mine commissaries. He owned farms from which came much of the grains and meats sold at the commissaries. He owned the mills and the grounds that ground the grains into flour and meal. He owned strategic ferries and stretches of roads and owned or directed the principal financial institutions in his territory. The locals during this time even referred to that period as back in Raht's time. This gentleman is so extraordinary that he actually named the book Ducktown, Back in Raht's Time. So today, I have gotten the 29-year-old Julius E Raht, as he has just come into the Ducktown region in our discussion today. Mr. Raht,
How do you do?
they call you Captain Julius E Raht.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
How old are you, Mr. Raht?
I'm 29 years old, sir.
Where was you from before arriving here?
My family came from Dillenburg in Germany. My father, he was a part of the court system and had what I guess you could say is much of a disagreement with the duchy there, and was banished. And it was a good time for me and most of my family to leave the area, and I decided to settle here in the United States.
Did you go to college in Germany?
Yes, sir. I actually went to the university in Bonn and the university in Berlin for chemistry and mineralogy.
So that was your main reason for coming here, or?
More or less came because of the opportunity that I could have here in America. But the time was right, and I saw fit that America is probably the best place to go. I had options to go to other places, but I was set that America was where I wanted to be.
When you came here, were you thinking that I'm going to be in the mining business? Did you have aspirations of that?
Definitely, there was money involved that I could look at, but there was the mining of multiple different things is what brought me in with my expertise in mineralogy. I actually worked at a few different mines, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio. There was an operation for lead mining, and I happened to get this opportunity from some investors in New York and some investors in Louisiana to come to Ducktown to work their mines. So
you're somewhat educated.
Yes, sir. I spent quite a bit of time in school and then also in the field working.
Some say that you have a knack for what we'd call today accountants.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that statement. It would be safe to say with my father's work in the courts, I picked up a thing or two from him with bookkeeping, balancing books, helping people with their money that otherwise would have a harder time dealing with it themselves.
Some say that you had mastered the single entry accounting system.
Master is a strong word, but I guess you could say that, yes.
Now, when you came to Ducktown, rumor has it. What I'm getting at is it said that at one time you became the richest man in the state of Tennessee. Is that rumor or is that fact?
That is fact to be correct for myself.
Now,
I did get to that point before I died.
Now, at 29 years old, it was like when you arrived here, another one of the, I guess, rumors was that you first arrived and you stayed in a primitive shack near the Ducktown mine.
Yes, I actually stayed there for quite a while, and when I went actually back to Germany for a time, and that's where I met my wife, Matilda. And I brought her back to Ducktown, and she probably would also agree that we were staying in a quite primitive shack. So, yes.
What was the interactions with the Indians? Because the Indians at that time, what year was this?
I came in to Ducktown, I believe, in 1854 when I was 27. Relationships at that time, there weren't very many Indians in the area. The ones that had stayed from the removal had hid in the mountains, and we were able, for the most part, to be able to work with them. We did not see them as any kind of threat. As a boy reading about the Indians, you would have thought they had been very scary people to be around, but they were actually quite civilized.
Now, 8 months into or I guess it wasn't very long before you were actually pretty much running this mine.
Yes, sir. I believe my investors and my employers at the time were very confident in my abilities, and I started being able to bring in some more wealth to fund some more of my more personal projects. You touched on it already, the commissaries I owned, to bring in some money for that. And with that responsibility, I kind of just gained more and more and more. So.
Now, these commissaries, were they owned by the mines, by the mining companies, or were you just commissioned to run them, so to speak?
These were something I myself had taken on to do. I saw a need, and I had the money, and I had investors that were helping me, and I was able to own multiple stores in Ducktown and actually here in Cleveland. I had stores. So.
Now, these commissaries, were you running the mines at the same time?
Yes, I was very, very busy at the time. I was a supervisor, if you would, the mine captain for multiple mines in the Ducktown area while owning storefronts there in Ducktown and here in Cleveland. So I was quite busy.
Now, they said that at one time you owned a commissary in Hiwassee, Isabella, Ducktown, and then you ended up having a storehouse in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And even the storehouse itself became a storefront, and it was the most successful.
It was quite popular in Cleveland, and from my understanding, even after I was gone, it continued to be quite popular in the area.
Raht and Walker, they called it?
I believe so, yes.
Now, but at the time, you were actually running these other mines.
Mines, and even think about the mill trains. I had my hand in any pocket I could be in.
Someone once said that one of your managers, and I may be speaking out of turn, but one of the managers said that there was not 3 bodies that could do the will of Mr. Raht. What, were you very demanding or? I think he even went further and said that the words almost, just about, and maybe were not even in your vocabulary.
Let us just say that I did not expect anything from anyone else. I did not do myself. I put in many hours, and I'm not one to hear people make excuses on how much time they can involve in their workday. I feel like if you want it, you should go get it.
What was your main purpose for all this? I mean, you're running the mines. How many mines were there that you were running?
Oh, Lord, I can't remember honestly. There was the Burr mine, I believe, in
The
Isabella.
Burra. Now there's a museum there, and I believe
Really?
they have your picture there.
Well, that's quite flattering. But no, I did a lot of work in the Ducktown area, in the Copper Basin.
One of your first large purchases, I guess you'd say, was a 488-acre farm that you referred to as your little Turtletown farm.
Yes. And I believe I expanded that property all the way up to about 7,000 acres.
7,000 acres.
That is correct. On top of the property I even owned in the Cleveland area. It was two different separate properties. But yes, I spent quite a bit of time there even after the war. But I spent some time there with my family until it wasn't good anymore, and I came to spend more time in Cleveland.
Now, did you buy? How did you get the copper to Cleveland? Did you bring? I mean, how was it transported?
That would be by mule train, wagons, mule teams. They would come down the mountain. They'd stop at the halfway house, and then they'd make the rest of the journey into Cleveland to the train depot.
Was it like a 2-day trip?
Yes, it was most definitely a 2-day trip.
Where was the halfway house?
Oh,
It's
well,
halfway, I guess.
It is halfway on the trip. Down once you get out of the Ocoee Gorge, it's the perfect spot for my mule teams to stay the night.
How many would be in a mule team?
I believe you mean mules?
Yeah,
I believe it was 9 to 10 mules, if I remember correctly.
all yoked together.
Yes, yes,
And you owned the mule teams?
yes. And in one case, I actually purchased a mule team with a slave, a great, hardworking young man. And as soon as I was able to free him, I did. And
I believe it was said in the book, Mr. Barkley got one of your quotes that said, "He will never be a slave to any other man."
correct. He earned his freedom and more.
Did that come from your father's background of freedom of speech, the Germany thing? Do you think you got that from him?
I definitely could say for sure. My father was very outspoken about his freedoms, and obviously it got him in some trouble in Germany. And that's what is a wonderful thing about the United States is you have that freedom to speak the way you want to, and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's what I feel like I'm here doing. And Edom, he had every right as I did to do the same.
Now, it's also, how many teams, I mean, they said that you owned the scaffolding even that went in the mines?
I had my ownership in just about everything but the mine. I worked for the mines, but anything I could own dealing with the mining operations, to the milling, to the transportation, the processing, feeding, clothing miners, I made sure that I had my own taken care of.
Was it their welfare you were interested or in profits?
Of course, I was interested in the welfare of my workers, but profits were very important to me. Yes.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem. Now, before we get too far, you arrived here in 1850, right?
Correct.
How did you get here?
I came across the Atlantic on the good ship of Bavaria, and made multiple stops in many states, working for different mine companies, and eventually landing here.
Now, what's odd to me is just a few years later, by 1950, by the time you came here, you were actually made chief of the mining company, but you'd only been here a short period, like a few months.
That would be correct. I came in with some letters of introduction to the mining company, basically saying that I'd be introduced into a managerial position at the mine, and it took only a few months for me to gain the position of mine captain, and that's where I got my nickname. That many of the people call me the captain. So by all means, if you would prefer to call me Raht or Rat,
Did some refer to that period as in Raht's time, and others referred to it in Rat's time?
Yes, from my understanding, later on, when the good people of Ducktown and the Copper Basin would describe something happening, they would give emphasis to it, like this was, that happened before Rat's time, or during Rat's time, or after Rat's time. So you could say I had a pretty large impact on the area and how things happened.
At the time when you took over these commissaries, your monthly salary was like $125,000, but soon into it, you were making over $100,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
and that rubbed some people the wrong way, I guess.
Whenever you are doing better than someone else, there's going to be animosity. There's going to be people who are going to say negative things or be jealous of what you have, and that just comes with the territory of success.
Did that bother you?
No, not at all. I frankly don't have time for those people. I only have enough time for my work and to succeed at what I'm doing, and not sit there and worry about a bunch of hens clucking in the hen house, if you will.
When did you get your citizenship, or did you?
Yes, I gained it not long after I got into the Copper Hill area. I believe it was 1856. I swore my allegiance to the United States and became a full-time citizen of the United States.
But then not soon after that, you were appointed superintendent of the Pike, what we would call as the Turnpike.
Plank Road, yes.
Plank Road?
Yes, sir.
So you were actually were you actually in a roundabout way making money off making the roads to the mines?
One could look at every aspect of the operation that I was affiliated in with Ducktown. The mining, the smelting, the transport, the shipping. I made sure I had my share.
What about the ferry at the Keith? I guess it's Old Federal Road.
Yes.
Did you own the ferry?
Yes. I owned a ferry. I was a superintendent at the roads. Any place I could be working make a dollar, I made sure I was part of it.
Now, this was around the Civil War, I guess, 1876. And see now, if we back up, you were involved in the smelting, which what does that mean?
Smelting involves with when you mine the copper, it comes out as ore. So it has a lot of different minerals in that you do not want to have. Different, just junk that we have no use for. So what you do is you heat it up to a super high temperature, and you would separate the slag from the copper. And you would put those copper into ingots, and we would roll them out into sheets and transport that copper to Cleveland, to the storehouses.
Now, I guess that were you making any cannonballs? Is that?
I was not. I was not affiliated in doing business with the Confederate Army until they more or less forced my hand.
Now, there's some discrepancy there, but I won't get into that.
For all intents and purposes, I would have only done business with good standing citizens in our union, and would have not supported any Confederate cause, if that is what you're trying to get at.
I just know what Sherman said.
Me and the good general have some disagreements about post-war dealings.
What was his quote?
He more or less said that if I had been at the operation in Ducktown instead of Cincinnati, that they would have shot me on sight. And he fully believed I was a collaborator of sorts, and that I was working with the Confederate government, providing copper for caps, in particular musket caps, and then the copper would be used in bronze for cannons. But once again, as soon as I was able to leave and go to Cincinnati, I did, to seek refuge within the Union, away from the Confederate States.
In the book, it said that you were actually still in charge of the mines, even though you were in Cincinnati.
I had enough workers that were loyal to me and knew that I was going to take care of them and their needs, that they definitely they made some moves to keep some copper hidden away, and continue to work the mines as long as they could, until once again the Confederate government took over the mine.
Now, before you moved, there's a house over here. Did you have anything to do with bringing the railroad stop at Cleveland?
My business ventures most definitely had an influence in railroads. Would I have necessarily say that I brought the railroads in? I would probably say no. But the prosperity in Cleveland definitely brought interest into having a depot in Cleveland.
Now, there's documented letters where you're writing to the governor trying to get it here, so maybe you had a bigger hand in it than you're letting on.
Maybe. I tend to like to keep some of my business ventures under the table, if you will. Make things happen with favors. Not everything has to be on a book. You understand?
I think I know where you're getting at. But now, when you left Cleveland, you actually had a house behind the depot that is still there today. Mm-hmm. And it's referred to as the Raht House.
That would be correct.
Was there actually 2,000 acres that you owned with that house in what we consider downtown Cleveland?
Yes. Once again, The way the people of Cleveland live today in the area, it looked much different. And majority of that 2,000 acres was farmland and fairly vacant. But no, I would say I owned that property and also had another property, another home on that property. I believe it was a Mr. Caldwell built the house, and I bought it from him.
Mr. Raht or Captain Raht, it's said that they, when the armies were using your property, that they destroyed it so badly that you actually applied for relief and later got compensated for that.
That is correct. There were a lot of issues with the Army did not leave my property as a good steward. There was a lot of issues, and later on, my children would be getting sick. We could only assume from just the filth of these armors being on the property, it just wasn't doable for us to stay in Copper Hill anymore.
Now, you may not want to answer this, but is there an actual tunnel from the depot to the basement of your house there?
There's an access to a drainage causeway underneath the Caldwell-built Raht home. Yes, a drainage way. Correct.
Was that an part of the Underground Railroad?
I think if you looked into it, you would realize that it was simply for building up the city of Cleveland. There's many tunnels throughout the downtown Cleveland area that were meant to bring stormwater away from the street. So the idea of me having an Underground Railroad is laughable. There's no way.
But given your history of what you did with the Mr. Edom, it makes a person wonder if you were compassionate to that.
Oh, I am most definitely compassionate to the living conditions and the moral welfare of slavery, but I would never break federal law to go about such activities.
But why would a drainage ditch end at your house? Or would you just rather not talk about it?
Let's just move along to a different subject, please.
All right, well then, after the war, you regained control back of the mines as manager, which you were actually still managing from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Correct.
And life went on, and then you decide that you're going to go into the milling operations and ended up buying a flour mill in Athens that became even a great success?
Correct. There were many people that needed to be fed, and that mill was a perfect opportunity to gain operation of it, boost production, and bring some of that milled flour into Cleveland to feed those miners.
Now, you also were lending money during these periods
Correct. And and also with lending money, I helped start a bank in Cleveland, which was able to help even more people with their needs for financial gain.
In Mr. Barkley's book, it said that there was no doubt Cleveland National Bank, was that the name of it?
Correct.
There was no doubt that it was anything but Raht's bank.
It may have been very much a bank by my design and major holdings, but it was for the people of Cleveland. It was most definitely for the people of Cleveland.
When this bank, it was said that during this period, this region really didn't have a bank, and that you were actually doing a service to the community, and that you weren't just a profiteer.
Most definitely. It would have been very easy for me to loan out money and have a ridiculous amount of interest and make profit off these people, but that would not help me in the long run. It's a short-term gain. The people in this community and their welfare has value, and if I wanted to have a future here, to diminish them would be to diminish myself.
I've noticed your eye seems to be okay. You at one time had some eye disease and went back to Germany?
Correct. After the war, I did have to return to Germany because of that illness. But luckily, I was able to return and continue my work here.
Let me ask you this. You seem to, philanthropy was something that you got into within this same quarter of a century. And they said that you helped and built several churches, and you even, but you were a Lutheran, is that right?
Correct. I was born and raised in the Lutheran Church.
One of the quotes in Mr. Barkley's book that supposedly you said was that a preacher one time asked you to come to services more, and you told him that people would follow, good people were good people whether or not they went to services and were told to be good or not.
That is correct. I made the analogy that not all sheep need a shepherd. Some sheep are better on their own without the guidance of a shepherd. They can live correctly in God's eyes and not have to have that structure. But some sheep need the structure. They need the guidance of a shepherd. So that's the analogy I made to him when we were speaking.
Now, I believe that was the same guy that also reported that there was a lady in Athens that fell on some bad luck, and you bought her a house and provided her with living assistance until she passed away?
Oh, correct. Once again, later on in my life, when I gained more wealth and I was able to share that with the people in the area, I made a point to help as many people as I could, not only with their spiritual guidance or their financial guidance. I also helped with schooling. I felt like education, in particular mathematics, is the cornerstone of a good society, and getting children educated is highly important.
You were even building the schools back when you were, before you resided primarily in Cleveland, You were even helping with the school in Isabella and I think Ducktown.
Yes, correct.
Is it one of the other people that was mentioned in the book said that you thought that the basis for all education was mathematics?
Correct.
To me, that's a little odd. Why?
In my opinion, if you can master math, the way it gets your brain working, you can start to grasp other subjects much easier. I feel like many people can be adept with history or reading literature, but one who is skilled in mathematics will become more successful and be able to master other things along the way. I feel like that is the basis for a well-educated, well-rounded person.
Now, let me ask you this. There's a lot of history that we haven't heard about as far as you're concerned. And you passed away around 100 years ago.
I was only in my mid-40s when I passed away of heart failure. And I feel like I had much more work to be done in the area, and more could have been done. But yes, it is about that time.
Do you feel like that if there was ever to be someone revered from Cleveland,
I would like to think so. I feel like one could even call the betterment of Cleveland, Ducktown, the Copper Basin as my life's work. I did make lots of money and became very, very rich, but I put a lot of time into making Cleveland what it is today, and having some recognition for that. You were speaking about the museum.
yes,
It is nice to hear that, but and the book is also nice. I do feel like I'm surprised not more people know about what I did. I don't feel like the time has passed that long for things to be forgotten like they have been. But I don't want to be on a soapbox and be too righteous about what I've done here.
Are you buried here at Fort Hill?
Yes,
Are you buried next to your wife?
exactly where I needed to be.
She seemed to have stuck with you.
She was a very good woman. We had many beautiful children together. And we lived a very good life.
You are a very interesting person.
Thank you. I would say the same. I've never had an opportunity to come perform an interview quite like this.
Mr. Raht, it's an honor. Let me tell you about Gobbles Automotive. They're on North Lee Highway, just past Captain D's. They're family owned, they're family operated. My whole family uses it. They've stood the test of time. They will do you a good job. Give them a try. They're no problem. Will, that was very good.
It was a lot of fun.
You had done a lot of research on that guy.
Oh, Lord. Honestly, it's one of those things. I was talking to you and kind of even leading into it. I didn't know about Raht until we first started talking about him and going down the rabbit hole, if you will, like doing the research, doing some readings, looking around on the web. And I really can't believe that there's not like a serious, thing in Cleveland about him, like a statue or a plaque or anything. It's just,
there's one little plaque at Burra Burra Mine, and this guy, he did bring the railroad here.
Mm-hmm.
I know he skated around that, or you're getting all that
Yeah.
information from his book. He didn't really want that. What year did he die? Was it
I'm trying to think. He died at the age of
53?
40. Was it 53? Okay. Yeah. So once again, he wasn't very old, and a lot of I think you look at some photos of him later in life. He was a heavy guy.
Yeah.
So once again, heart failure got him at the end. And life expectancy was not like it is today, but still, being in his 50s, a wealthy man in a place like Cleveland where there's more than enough health care, he definitely died early on. And
Wonder where his place was that he died, because it said he went down to his office and he was upstairs. I guess it was downtown above where
who knows? It could have been at the bank.
it could,
For
I
all we
think
know,
yeah.
he could have been at the bank working. He might have been having those issues. He might have died at home in his bed.
You did a lot of research. You feel like you portrayed him exactly how he was as best you could.
I tried my best not to put how I would have felt about him, because there were a lot of things we discussed. Like for instance, the Underground Railroad and the tunnels, and I remember hearing about that, and there was nothing in the book, so I started looking at some research for the tunnels, and I had a friend of mine who, when they first initially discovered those tunnels, he was down in the tunnels with the Lee students and the professors, like trying to figure out what it was, and to the best of their knowledge, that they were building up the sewers for Cleveland, because they expected Cleveland to be the next Chicago, is what they were thinking, and it never got to that point. But honestly, I want to say they decided those tunnels were built sometime in the 1870s. So he would have been later in life. Abolition would have already happened. So the likelihood of it being Underground Railroad is extremely slim. But that's a story that's around town and how things are. And there's a lot of people that are like, oh, how can you be sure? Can you know? And what it comes down to is, we've done our research and you know.
But it led to his basement. That's to me, that's the telltale sign.
And see, that's one of those things. Like I can't tell you, conclusively. Like, no, this is exactly what it is, because we don't know exactly.
And he was a thing we didn't mention is these mining companies that he was the manager of, and then he owned the commissaries. They actually sued him for making so much money off of it.
Oh Lord, yeah. These guys after the war, they couldn't believe they lost so much during all this. But this guy here, he's rich, he's successful. He must have skimmed off the top. And what the truth is, he had his hand in every aspect of that operation. He had a monopoly.
And then he later came back and bought the halfway house.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was another thing, was, thinking, did he build it himself? Was it part of the road? Or did he purchase it? It was a pre-existing home that he did purchase.
Here's an interesting thought that I just now thought of. He had how many kids?
I think he had 12.
Wouldn't you think that out of 12 children, that was what, 100? He died in 1879. For all practical purposes, it's been 135 years, 140 years. That's just 2 generations. Somebody here alive today would have been a direct descendant of one of Raht's children.
And see, that was one thing I didn't do a lot of research into, was what the family did after he passed. Where'd they go? And for all we know, I would have to research more into it. Matilda could have taken all the kids, and maybe things had cooled down in Germany. They might have gone back to Germany, or they settled somewhere else.
Or went back to Ohio.
Yeah.
But the book really didn't say.
And that's one thing that the book did talk about, is she was very, very fond of Cincinnati. And actually kind of fought tooth and nail, like, how about we just stay here? It's nice, let's stay here. We're in a nice place. Why go back and live in the dirty shack at the mine? But
I think that's why he came back. Well,
he definitely had unfinished business here. So I think he was determined, because he hadn't learned the copper had been sold yet. When he came back to Cleveland, he had realized that the Army had auctioned off that copper, and that's what preempted him to go talk to Sherman and be like, hey, listen, I need reimbursement for this loss. Mm-hmm. And Sherman just kind of said, you're lucky we're not calling you a traitor and shooting you, so no. And Raht was very happy, just go, okay, that's fine. I got some copper still. I have my other business. I'll just cut it as a loss and go. But no, I think he kind of went there with the idea that I'm going to tell Sherman a thing or two, and he owes me money, and then Sherman just shut him down. And like we all know, Sherman to be is very fiery, and he wasn't going to budge at all. So,
but Raht, the book never addresses what his family did afterwards. I think it ends the chapter with that. That the guy that wrote that book, it was a hard read. It wasn't an easy book to read. So it's not like you could read it again. You'd have to read it because a lot of it is just letters that Raht had written and people had written about Raht. Now, I believe there was a connection where Cleveland High School, that maybe he had built a school over there that later became the Bradley County Poorhouse, and then later became the nursing home. I think he owned that. But it would be interesting and not hard to find out Raht's descendants. There may be, we may be one of them.
Well, I'll say, now I know, I'm trying to think, on my mom's side of the family, they're from Florida. No. Oh, Lord, I'm going to have to remember that myself.
I think they're from Florida, and your dad's from, he's from here, but his dad was from Knoxville.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You didn't know Rabbit, did you? Your grandfather?
No, he unfortunately, he passed away in the 80s.
I remember when he passed away.
I want to say my mom and dad were probably just beginning to date when he started getting sick and passed away.
I went to school with your dad when he was in the 6th grade.
I'm sorry. That must have been a time.
He's always been
I've had a lot of people tell me my dad was born an old man. He's always just kind of been down to business.
He's like a guy in the military. He's just this way. Mm-hmm. I'd hate to have to sway him because he wouldn't sway, would he?
And it's funny because we're talking about my dad. I couldn't help but research this guy and think how much of a workaholic this dude is and how much work he puts into this. And I kind of saw a bit of my dad because my dad, he's a working man. He busts his butt every day.
Always
was. And he's done that since he was a kid. Some stories he tells me is me and my brother both started working.
You couldn't tell them apart till they got way up in ages. They looked the same.
Oh yeah.
Back to Raht. He in that book, one of the guys said it wouldn't have mattered where Raht was born. He would have still been extremely wealthy. That he was not only extremely smart and a hard worker, but he also had an unbelievable amount of luck that went with him.
Raht probably would tell you it had nothing to do with luck. This guy, he just seemed to have a nose to sniff out opportunity and where he could make a buck. And he saw where there was a need for a commissary. He saw where there was a need for a mill. He saw where there was a need to manage a road. He saw, hey, I can get this mill in Athens. This guy was just hunting opportunity, just over and over. His mindset, his ability, just even helping people with their own finances, because he did that a lot early on. He just had an incredible mind for business that, you would look at, these millionaires of today, and they probably would have a lot of connection to Raht. And just they have that innate skill to sniff out a good deal, an opportunity to make money, and just they had the nerve to take that risk and jump into it.
Max Everhart told me one time, he said, if you want to be rich, find a need and fill it.
Mm-hmm. find that opportunity.
That's what Raht was doing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And that goes back to Ross. He helped get the
I know my dad.
he's Walker.
Yeah, he's busy with the warehouse. He's busy with the Chamber of Commerce. He is working all over the place. So, when his day's done at the warehouse, it's not necessarily done.
He's just starting. How about Bill?
Bill, he's a busy man too. You should see him. He's got this new. He's been working at these gun shows, doing the gun trading. So, we all got our hand in something. Me, not really. I'm just trying to focus on.
Do you work at the warehouse every day?
Yes, sir.
You deliver beer?
Most of the time, what I'm doing, I've worked a lot with our draft, with a lot of the restaurants here in Cleveland and all over the market, with especially the craft beer. But with COVID, the way things have been, people getting sick, I find myself a lot of the time getting on some of these delivery routes on the trucks and working that way. It's in fact what I did last week.
Because somebody's out.
Yeah, you just got to fill up the spot.
And you don't know it till that morning or something, right?
Half the time, it's usually I get a call like 8 o'clock, or maybe it's in the morning like, hey.
From who?
Any number of people. Sometimes it's the guy that's being out. Sometimes I get a text from my dad or my cousin Bill. It just depends.
Do they have it real organized, the whole thing?
Oh, yeah. I'd like to think we're organized, but sometimes it's like organized chaos. Just, when something changes instantly, you just got to roll with it. You just got to, know who needs to jump in what spot and kind of go there. So.
That's just the way it is, and you can't outplan that, can you?
No, I think when it comes down to it, it's just one of those things. When it happens, you gotta jump, fill the need, and move along. And the more you sit there and think and scratch your head, it's just a waste of time. So you just gotta do it.
Do you think it's better to make a decision quick than it is to take a long time to make it?
In fact, General Patton, I believe, had a quote saying a plan executed today is always better than a well-thought plan tomorrow.
Boy,
once again, he was a bit of a bull in China shop sometimes, but once again, we look back at Patton, he was a brilliant tactician, and there's some truth to you sit there and you wait, you lose opportunity, just like probably Raht had thought.
That's right.
If you sit there and wait and think on things too long, or think, I don't know, maybe this is too much, maybe I don't need to do this, opportunity's gone by.
Did you ever watch The Sopranos?
Oh Lord, I got into it a little bit, but
remember when Tony said to the nephew, he says it's not important the decision you make, but that you make it in a timely manner. That's going along the same route.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think part of it is if you make it quick, you got time to adjust it. Whereas, if that makes sense.
No, definitely. I feel like once again you want to make a good, well-thought decision on any time, but when the need arises, if you freeze, something's going to even go more wrong, or you're going to miss that opportunity. So yeah, you have to know when to just, not even like sit there and react, but just act to it. You don't even react to it. You just go along with it.
I think good managers don't necessarily make all the right decisions. They're able to go ahead and kind of real quick assess the benefit risk thing in their mind in a quick way, and they go with the least risky route.
Mm-hmm. We're all human, and we don't always make the right decisions, or but the thing is, you have these people in life that we appoint leaders in our community, or even as simple as being in a household. And, everyone's going to make mistakes. You think it's the right decision at the time, and it might be the wrong one later. But doing something's always, in my experience, doing something is always better than doing nothing.
Or just waiting and just taking forever to decide.
Yeah, you freeze up. So can't freeze. You gotta roll with the punches and make more decisions.
Did you not go to Charleston High?
No, sir. I actually went to Walker Valley.
Could you have gone to Charleston?
I don't think. I think Charleston had converted to like elementary school by then.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not a high school, I guess. And I don't know what I was thinking.
I don't even know if they're still like technically in elementary school.
Yeah, I don't. In fact, I think they might have a garden in front of it now.
Yeah, they got that
like
little greenhouse there.
You ever, when you go into Charleston, they don't give you speeding tickets like they used to over there, right?
Oh Lord! Well, when I was first driving, I think I got 2 speeding tickets through Charleston, and that was enough. After having to deal with my dad, that was enough that I was making sure I was going at least 33 miles an hour through Charleston.
Now, if you go over the bridge to Calhoun, you don't have a choice. You might as well just
You might as well just pull. You might
pay
as well
over
just
the
go ahead and
ticket.
pull on
Yeah.
over. Just wait for him to get you.
You ever get a ticket over there?
I think I might have once, or I know I've gotten pulled over once, but I think I was late going somewhere, and this wonderful officer believed my story. I was very late, and I'm very sorry, and I got to go. And I think they might have let me off with a warning that one time, which is extremely rare. At least in my case, I always seem to get tickets.
That reminds me of a time I was talking to Bill. He said he got stopped going through there, and the police said, "What's wrong?" He said, "My 2 boys are at home fighting, and I got to get home." And the policeman said, "Well, you better get on," and didn't give him a ticket.
If only. I remember one time I got pulled over. I was 17 years old. I wasn't far off from my birthday, and I was late for work. I was on the beer truck. It was like 4:30 in the morning. I was driving. I was late, and I got pulled over. And I had just gotten my Jeep and got the big wheels put on it, and the speedometer hadn't gotten recalibrated, so I was like going like 76. I knew I was speeding, but I didn't think I was speeding that bad.
Yeah.
He gave me a ticket, and it was like, "You're going to have to go to court, reckless driving." And I got to the warehouse. The guy I was supposed to be with hadn't even shown up yet. He was late too.
Is that right?
I had no reason to even be speeding in that case. So.
Did you go to court?
Oh yeah, I was terrified. Dad went with me too, so he went there to help, moral support. But no, he could about tan my hide when that happened.
Did you go to college?
Yes, sir.
Where at?
I went to East Tennessee State University. I studied. It's funny, very much like Raht. It wasn't mineralogy, but I studied geology and history. So.
Now, this isn't the first time you've acted. Do you do the Civil War things?
Yeah. What we would mostly call it is living history. And most of the time when I do these, I've done a couple times in Calhoun. They dedicated a plaque, and I portrayed a citizen of Calhoun talking about the dismantling of the Presbyterian Church to make, I believe it was like a floating bridge. And I spoke on behalf of that, and with my reenacting career, I've portrayed multiple different soldiers, and then you gave me a call, and I did this. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I had heard from Larry Ramsey, because I was been trying to get somebody to portray Raht, and he said, "Man, look no further." And then when I called you, but you ever think you'd want to be an actor, a real actor?
Oh yes, I think I'd make a great actor. If only a Hollywood agent would come pick me up and sweep me away.
What are you going to do? You going to stay at the Tarver Distributing?
Oh yeah. I would say I have a passion for the beer industry, but I think my dad's just brainwashed me and my brother. We're brainwashed, and
Oh, so you got another brother?
Yeah.
How old's he?
My brother Rossman. He's 22 months older than I am. No, I love working at the warehouse. Working with family can be difficult sometimes, but then you also, your family's got your back always. You don't have to worry about anything. So it's nice to stick together and be there at the warehouse. And
Now, do you when you work there, you go to lunch anywhere up in Charleston, because there's nowhere to eat.
In Charleston, that little muchacho taco place opened up. I haven't had a lot of time in there.
Was that?
I'm usually in Cleveland. And I might just pick up some fast food or something.
Is that Mucho Taco? That's at George King's old place.
Yeah, it's great.
What is it about history that fascinates you? Do you think we learn from it, or do you just?
I think you learn from it, number one. And the unfortunate thing with history is sometimes, it's not actually, it's a good story. A lot of things get omitted by whoever's telling that story. So, there's a lot of things with history that are just kind of like a gray area that you don't really know, or there might be a story we're telling at one point that, no, this is 100% the fact. For instance, let's talk about the Little Bighorn. Custer was a huge hero, and he was fighting these terrible Indians, and it was all bad. But new history's looking at things differently, and like, no, Custer was actually kind of not that great of a guy. He was arrogant, and the Native Americans got a terrible hand. But you would have gone back into the 50s, and it was a complete opposite idea of, Native American culture and history.
It makes us wonder what history we can even with today, we get fake news. You Google something, I can get something that says coffee's good and something that makes coffee's bad. So we don't know what to believe anymore.
The internet is full of all kinds of crazy stuff, and that's one of those things I learned with studying history was kind of interpreting different documents, because a lot of the stuff I did was I spent a lot of time in the archives there at ETSU and would read original documents or see photos, and just because one thing is said doesn't necessarily mean that's the truth. I usually find the truth is more or less in the middle, because I'm trying to think. I wrote a paper once about coal miner accidents, and a lot of it coalesced to divorce rate, believe it or not, in West Virginia, and a lot of women beginning in the mines, and these guys not wanting to work with the women, so they would just, whoops, drop this hammer on your foot or any number of different things. So the accident rate in mines went up. It's not because it was a more dangerous place, but the mines would have not wrote that. It's just it's just women being clumsy. Ooh. But there was a lot of animosity to having these gender norms change. So just getting to go into archives and look at these different the high majority of these accidents, where someone did something and it resulted in a female miner being injured, you can interpret that it wasn't always just an accident. It was purposeful.
So being a history major and being interested in the true history, that's what made you so passionate about portraying Raht as you read it in this book. Now we have to go on what this book says.
Right.
But it had actual letters and documents.
Oh, no,
So,
I think the book did a really good job of not trying to infer his character. The most I felt like it was inferring his character was probably about some of his dealings with building churches and schools, showing that like how he thought these were very important for Cleveland.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't attend church, but he felt church was very important, which was a really fascinating thing to learn.
he was a really great guy, wasn't he?
I think he was an awesome guy. I think he was amazing, and the things he accomplished in his lifetime are great. And maybe I haven't been looking at the right places, but I'm surprised we don't hear more about him.
I don't either. It just blows my mind. Maybe it's just been a little bit too far away. Maybe if it was 50 years.
Mm-hmm. Still a little bit more fresh.
I mean, if he had lived to be 105, he would have died in, 30 years later. He'd been 19 something, so.
Well, even think if he would have just lived to a more natural life expectancy,
yeah,
like even into his 70s, 20 years.
Yeah.
That's how much he accomplished in his time just here.
And he wasn't even here part of the time. He had to go hide away to keep from getting shot.
Just think, he came into this area in his late 20s and, was here for a matter of, about 5 years, had to leave because of the war, then came back and spent the rest of his life. So the amount of things he accomplished while he was in Cleveland area, the Copper Basin area, mm-hmm. Ducktown, is incredible. So to tell me, like, if he would have lived another 20 years, the things he would have done, it would have been insane. He already is known as the richest man in Tennessee. What could have he been known for if only he was around a little longer?
Man, hit the sky to be the limit for this guy.
I was about to say, yeah, for sure.
As a general rule, German people are very smart.
Oh, yeah.
You ever notice that? They seem to be high in mathematics, and must be something in their genes.
It must be. I don't know. But I think he just had a really strong father figure that, once again, was in the courts, dealt with a lot of business dealings, and took, his son under his wing and taught him, the morals that he felt were right, and, that had to deal with education and freedoms. And Raht could have as easily, after everything happened in Germany like it did, he could have easily said, I'm going to go work for the coal industry in England, and just called it done. He made a point to come to America because of the opportunity he saw with freedom of speech, what was happening in America, financial opportunities.
Because that's why his dad got ostracized there, because he was for
very
freedom
outspoken.
of, yeah, and
he was very outspoken.
The book said that that's one reason that writer thought that he came here was for more freedoms, because they had been like his whole family had been ostracized.
Right. And, there in that time, the way, Germany wasn't really even Germany yet then. It was a bunch of different loosely organized kingdoms, if you would. But the political system in Europe, they didn't probably have much option in, the European continent to go somewhere. But once again, like I said, he could have easily just gone to England and started a whole new life, lived there, but once again, England was already very jam-packed. England had its own issues then. Once again, he knew what was happening in the U.S., and tempers were getting a little heated, and the Civil War was about to happen, but he saw the opportunity to cut on like a large section of pie for himself.
Yeah.
By the end he died, he owned thousands and thousands of acres of property, and
2,000 next to the railroad. That would encompass everything.
Mm-hmm. Did you know his house is actually for sale right now?
That's what Gwen said.
Yeah, I saw that.
They should buy
Facebook.
that. The city of Cleveland should buy that and make a museum for Captain Julius E Raht.
I think that would be awesome if the funds were there just to have a historic site preserved like that. I think it'd be amazing. I think it'd be really cool.
You ever wonder this? If you owned those several mines, I think there was like 6 that he ended up running. If you're a big CEO of a mine, you don't want to go up there and work every day. So this Julius Raht, maybe he was just the guy that said, hey, I don't mind living in the shack, dealing with the workers, and I'll manage this mine. Maybe they were taking more advantage of it, because Ducktown would have been a nowhere place at that time. So he was actually probably the one that would go into the mud and make something of it, and then after it was over and became a thriving place, he even owned part of Greasy Creek.
Well, think about it. He came in from Germany. These guys that are working the mines, they're guys that probably lived in that area, not well educated. They're just throwing a pickaxe. But he came in as this educated European guy. You would think you would think they wouldn't respect him, but he did something, the way he communicated or worked, that he gained the respect of all those people, that when he had to flee to Cincinnati, that he was still able to work with them from that distance, even with
letters. With letters.
Yeah. So he must have had a rapport with these people because of the way he was.
That's what I kept trying to read between the lines. Mm-hmm. That was what you summed it up when I was trying to say. How did this guy, he would have been a nobody, even had an accent.
Mm-hmm. He was just some foreign guy that came here and was trying to tell me what I need to do.
29 years old.
Yeah. So he must have done something. He must have got his hands dirty.
And had letters of recommendation.
That, he had a way with, I think he had a way with people. He had a way with business. He had a knack to look for opportunities where a lot of people didn't. And I think he was just a very successful businessman who knew how to make good relationships with people, well liked. So, a very, very interesting person. So once again, I'm surprised we don't have much more.
I don't even know who owns that house over there.
I want to say a lot of it's undisclosed, because even like that, I was looking at the ad for it being for sale. Uh-huh. I don't think they even disclosed the address. Obviously, you go to the railroad depot, you cross the railroad tracks, go up the hill a little bit, it's there on the left.
Yeah. And he owned 2,000 of those.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta
know
go?
what? I am about to be
You got
called
1
over
minute.
for dinner.
Hey,
Hey, thanks for the invite.
You're a
I
great
really
guy.
appreciate it. It was a lot of
I
fun.
appreciate you really thinking of it and trying to portray it, and you are a good guy.
Thank you.